Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the After the Frame podcast. My name is Malik, and I am joined, as always, by.
Hi, I'm Matt.
And yeah, it's been a little while, been a few months. We got some catching up to do. So the next few episodes are going to be a little bit different. We're going to kind of just do 2, 3 reviews in one episode just so we can bang out the stuff that we kind of missed earlier on this year. And then we'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming of doing our, the big stuff that's coming out in the summer, basically. So how have you been in the last few months since we last recorded? I think our last episode was it Wuthering Heights, I
That's
think?
that's what I was thinking it was, and that was a good
That
chunk
was
of time ago.
February, I believe.
Yeah.
So
But no, I've been good. I mean, work's keeping me busy. Been nice to kind of catch up on some hobbies and stuff outside of work. For any movie buffs out there, I have started a physical media collection. That's been a fun goal. A long way to go. It's not cheap, but physical media is, fun. Go away streaming.
yeah, I agree. And it's not cheap, but it's like you're gonna have it forever,
Yep.
as long as you keep good care of it. So yeah, I'm gonna start doing the same. Probably next month. I already have like all of the stuff in my Amazon list that I want to order, and I'm just gonna go in a specific order I want and start getting them on a 4K Blu-ray. But for this episode, we are gonna be tackling the three movies: Scream 7, Undertone, and Ready or Not 2. But we are going to be kicking it off with Scream 7. So, what were your thoughts about this seventh entry in the Scream franchise? Have you been a fan of the franchise as a whole? What were your thoughts about everything?
Um, I think I enjoyed the, initial Scream, the original, probably the most. After that, it's kind of like tailed off. Like I've seen all of them. They're just kind of okay. Like it's just, and then when you get to 5 and 6, like I didn't think 6 was all that bad. It could have been better, but I didn't think it was all that bad. Um, but it was definitely trending in a downward direction. And then this one came out, and it didn't feel like the sixth one came out that long ago. And it's just like we're doing this again. Like we're on number 7. I was very indifferent. I'm like, why are we doing this? And then I went and saw it, and yeah,
Yeah, I think I feel the same way about that. I mean, my relationship with the franchise, I've only ever seen the first one and then now the seventh one. I like to prepare to watch the seventh one. I was like, I think on Tubi or something, they started releasing the other ones. So I started watching the second one. I just couldn't be bothered with it. I feel like the first one was really good because it was, it had like its point of, poking fun or kind of having more of that satirical way of looking at horror movies.
yeah,
And then I feel like, I just watched like a YouTube video to kind of catch myself up on, the plots on all the other movies. It kind of just seems like it's lost its luster basically. And I feel like the seventh entry is really no different than the preceding five, basically.
yeah. And I mean, for its time too, like with the original, like it did something genuinely different. I mean, that came out in like 1996 or something, and it was different for its time. Um, and then yeah, I mean, all the follow-on sequels, I'd give like a 6, maybe a 7 out of 10, somewhere in that ballpark. Oh God, I should have known better. Uh, but
Careful.
but the first one is really good. This one is not. I will tell you that much.
Yeah, I agree. Wasn't too impressed. Let's dive into the actual things that worked for us and didn't. Do you want to tackle the negatives or the positives first?
Let's go the positives. We can give it its flowers and then pour acid on them as we go on.
Yeah, you can go first. I am imagining that both of us have a very short what worked and have a lengthy
Yeah.
negatives portion.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a couple good things that I do want to highlight and give their flowers. The one thing and main takeaway for this one for me was this newest installment proved that this franchise can still tap into nostalgia. Because in theory, Scream is one of the few horror franchises that can pull off callbacks and meta references without it automatically feeling, lazy or repetitive. And the DNA is there for the legacy characters in this one, and there's very familiar beats and storylines that they cross, and it's kind of like, hey, remember when we did this? They have those moments in there that work when they're earned. Emphasis on that point. Like some of them were good, some of them was just kind of like, okay, like we're just retreading. And the one thing that I think the franchise has kind of gotten away from in recent years, but has found its way to get back to, is the concept of satire. This one, it was still a strong foundation for the film, and the idea of using horror cliches as the fuel for comedy and commentary is purely why this franchise still exists. And it's still a smart framework, even if this entry didn't really capitalize on it. Um, and I will say there are a few moments that do aim for crowd reactions, and I think they did a decent job. I mean, there are attempts to kind of generate those classic, original like oh moments, like the kind that play well in a theater when the movie's firing on all cylinders, or even the series is just pumping out good content. So that there were highlights. But that really does it for my positives.
Yeah, mine will be just about the same. I have written down that yeah, I agree. The classic callbacks. I mean, they bring back a lot of, well, not a lot, but they bring back like most of the original cast, I'd say. What with like the AI thing that they had at the end. People cameoing and everything.
Yeah.
So that was fun. And then I thought the opening scene was fun because the Scream franchise is kind of known for its opening scene. I mean, calling back to the first movie with its classic opening about like, do you like scary movies and everything. This one was fun, very different, obviously. And I just thought that the death scenes throughout were also kind of gory and fun as well, like a little bit different. And the movie had its sprinkle of comedy throughout to keep me somewhat engaged, but other than that, I really, if you've seen Scream 2 through 6, I feel like you've seen this one. That those are my positives, honestly. Like, it keeps you somewhat engaged, but it's not, breaking down any barriers in this franchise or in the horror genre as a whole. So that's it for me on the positives.
Yeah, I mean, as you can tell, not a ton to hand out. Um,
Yeah.
you want to dive into the negatives?
Yeah, we can knock out the negatives. I'll go first on this one. My first point is that I feel like the film really struggles tonally. I think that the franchise is meant to be like how we mentioned, more of not quite a parody, but something that's like more satirical. And I feel like this movie kind of was caught in between of trying to be nostalgic, a regular horror film, and then also like commentary on AI as well with everything that it had going on. So I thought that the tone of the movie was kind of all over the place, especially for the likes of Scream, which I mean, like the tone is not necessarily always that great, but this one was particularly all over the place. Um, I feel like the premise had potential, like the plot. Sydney, living in her quiet life in her neighborhood, kind of trying to be separated, went off and married Jeff Winger from Community. And then she has this daughter, and the new Ghostface is trying to target the daughter, showing like more of a legacy thing. It's been seen before, but at least the pieces were there to be interesting. But I don't think that they executed it necessarily well. It was a little convoluted at points. Um, the themes of the legacy killers, AI, trauma, the internet, like, fan culture and everything. It had too much going on for me in those respects. Um, I feel like they could have done a little bit more tightening up with the mystery. I kind of figured out who one of the ghost killers were relatively quickly. And yeah, I just feel as though, like, also my problem with like the franchise as a whole is that the ghost faces are always, these normal people, like your everyday neighbor person you see in the town, and they're like indestructible. Like somehow whenever they're fighting whoever, they just have like the strength of 1,000 men. That always takes me out of the movies, no matter what movie I've watched in the franchise. Um, Let me see what else I have in my notes. I think I had one more thing here. I don't think that, like, for a sequel, I don't think the movie did what it intended on doing. I think the franchise has run out of steam, and I guess you could say that from like 3 movies ago, maybe even from the earlier days when they did the first trilogy, you could even argue that. So I don't feel like this film really offered anything to the franchise, or as I said earlier, anything to the horror genre. So it's kind of like you're sitting there saying, why, who was this for and why was it made? So those are all my negatives. I know it was a lot lengthier than the positives. So what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, we're probably gonna line up on a lot of similarities. So, I know I just kind of gave it some positives for its nostalgic usage and satire. Um, on the topic of that, I felt with, the franchise's original satirical identity, I feel like this one kind of loses it because to me, it felt like it drifts far away from what's made Scream special. It's got that sharp satire of horror trends and cliches, but instead of feeling, clever and self-aware, this one to me started to feel like it was just going through the motions. And you touched on a little bit about the villain. I mean, the villain handling just kind of killed the fun immediately. The way, the main villain is introduced and handled right off the jump really just deflated the mystery. And yeah, it's explained away too quickly, and it removes the suspense and playful guessing game that should really drive a Scream movie. And kind of touching back to my nostalgia point, there's a lot of nostalgia bait in this one that felt very cheap and unearned. The callbacks, the remember this type beats,
Yeah.
they didn't really feel like they grew out of the story. They feel like they exist purely to manufacturer reactions. More oohs and ahs than actual intrigue. Some of them were good, some of them were bad. Um, in my notes, I actually had to do some digging to make sure I got it right. To me, this one felt a lot more like Stab than Scream. If
That's
anybody's
fair.
seen Scream 2, that's your first introduction to the Stab film series. It's basically a parody of the Scream movies within the universe. But instead of being a smart horror satire, it edges into feeling like the in-universe parody film. And that's a really rough place for this franchise to end up because it signals it's become the thing it used to mock. Um, and overall, just like, I mean, there was a disappointment factor to this too. I mean, part of what makes this sting is that from my experience with Scream 1 through 6, it I mean, they're decent movies. But the franchise as a whole has rarely had like a true low. Most of the entries have at least redeeming qualities. Um, this one felt like the franchise's first real misfire to me, and it's kind of a bummer because of how high the series baseline usually is. So,
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think, as you said, like we overlapped a lot on the negatives. I felt as though this movie, at the end of the day, from from what I gathered from the sixth one, it was kind of, they had like a nice little bow on the end of that one. Like they could have
mhm.
just ended the franchise there. But money is money in Hollywood. But yeah, now it just kind of seems like if they're gonna make an eighth one or keep on going, kind of like Fast and Furious, is this gonna be the same plot? Over and over, nothing new with just a new cast of the one before had Jenna Ortega. This one's now got McKenna Grace, who was in a bunch of stuff the past like year. So it's just gonna be, I don't know. The next one will have Olivia Rodrigo or something. I don't know. Like it's just there to get people to get butts in seats, but not really offering anything more. Yeah, that's my closing statement on it. Do you have any closing thing on it?
I mean, one thing I will add, it's funny that you bring up the Fast and the Furious franchise because I think
Mhm.
that's a good comparison. But you know what I have to give to Fast and Furious that beats out Scream?
What's that? Family.
Family.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, there's some aspects of family in this, but no Dominic
Not to that
Toretto
degree,
stuff.
yeah. No Dom hanging off a
Uh,
helicopter.
I don't think the Ghostface killers would stand a chance with Dominic Toretto and his crew flying into space in their souped up Chevys. So I don't know what
Yep.
they'd do about that. All right, you want to just go straight into our ratings for Scream 7? What did you give it?
I gave it a 3.5 out of 10.
Okay, we're nearly there. I gave it a 4.5 out of 10. Um, it was teetering on a 4, but I found myself at least like laughing and having like somewhat of a good time. So, but yeah, definitely not a good one. Not one that I would really recommend. Even if you're like a diehard Scream fan, I feel like this is a missable, a skippable one. Me personally.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm looking at how I've historically rated the franchise. The next lowest score, just for context, is a
Mhm.
6.1 out of 10, and that one went to Scream 3. Everything else is, a 7 or above, except for this one.
Yeah, this one was
Tough.
a new low for the franchise, huh? All right. Well, that does it for our mini review on Scream 7. Shall we move on to Undertone?
Yeah, let's do it.
Um, so this movie, and I've been doing this all year now. I think I've mentioned it on a previous podcast that we've done this year. I'm trying my best to go into movies now without knowing anything, without seeing trailers if I can avoid them. This was one of them where I've just seen the poster for it around like Regal whenever I would go and watch other movies, and it seemed interesting enough. But what like while watching it, I thought that this movie did like what I like to call like horror movie edging. And I'll kind of go more into that when we go to the negatives because that's like my giant negative with this movie. But you know, before seeing it, I really didn't know much about it, didn't really have any expectations. What about you? Did you like see the trailer? Were you excited for this one?
I mean, I didn't know anything about it, um, until, seeing the poster. I don't think I ever saw the trailer. Like, I saw the poster, I saw a little bit of marketing about it.
Mm.
Um, I didn't know anything about it until, it's funny, my dad actually, like, mentioned it to me. He like, not long after he had seen it, he was like, "Have you heard of this?" Like, he's telling me a little bit about it. Uh, he was not a fan, and he goes to the theater all the time. And he was like, "Don't see it, don't see it." And I saw it, and my opinion actually differs from him. Spoiler alert. But yeah, as far as my knowledge going in, I didn't really know anything, and then I saw it, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that this is one that I would tell somebody, "Oh, don't see it," especially as a horror fan. The horror aspects I kind of enjoyed, but I'd recommend it, to somebody who's into horror. I mean, what was this? This was A24 or was this Neon?
Yeah, A24, I think.
Okay, because yeah, both of them have had a bunch of stuff coming out recently. But yeah, I
To
thought
to
decent.
quote my father verbatim, he said, "It is dog shit. Worst movie I've seen in a theater in a long time." And I'm like,
Well,
okay,
he doesn't see a lot of movies, I guess.
not as much as we do. I will say that much.
Yeah, because I wouldn't. It's not even my worst movie of the year.
It's nowhere
Um,
close to that for
Yeah,
me.
I really think that if you wanna, like, it's fine at least, but dog shit is kinda harsh, but, everybody, different strokes for different folks, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um, so you wanna tackle positives or negatives first? I kinda have
Uh,
an even amount of both for this.
I have more positives than negatives by
Okay,
one.
okay,
Um, so diving into positives, the main thing for me, the mood and atmosphere of this film are really the whole selling point. The movie really sets a strong, unsettling tone early, and it does a good job sustaining it. It's not very sloppy or incompetent. I mean, it's very clearly made with intention and vision. And the sound design, audio mix, like that whole realm is really the standout. Um, if I was to see this one again in theaters, I would recommend to go see it in like a Dolby format, some sort of like really strong audio preservation because the sound work really does a ton of heavy lifting. I mean, you hear unsettling textures, really just this pressure building ambiance, and there's moments that feel scary without relying on cheap jump scares, a la Scream. Um, and some flowers to Nina Kiri. She is the main lead of this film, and she's really got a strong lead performance. that really kind of keeps you locked in, even when the plot is kind of thin. She does a really good job selling the fear and anxiety in a way that really makes the movie effective. And I mean, going on top of the anxiety, levels, there's some very anxiety inducing camera work. And I mean that in a good way. The camera does a good job creating stress for the film. I mean, you've got really tight framing, you've got uneasy movement, you've just got this sense that something is always just off screen, just like behind it, and some sort of eerie feeling. It's creepy in the right moments, and it earns a lot of its scares through technique. And the one thing I can appreciate about the scares is that, they aren't jump scare dependent. Like it's more dread than boo. And that makes it feel a little more immersive, and for some viewers, way scarier than louder horror.
Yeah, I mean, you basically have my notes like said. Yeah, the big thing that you can honestly say about this film, and you have to give flowers for, is you know how it used sound basically as the quote unquote monster of the movie. I think that the pacing is like it's a slow burn, but it's done so intentionally, which I feel like some people may or may not like. Like maybe your dad thought it was like a little boring, dragged a little bit. I think it added to the tension. Watching it in theaters, like everybody was kind of like gripping their seat. Like as you mentioned, the camera work. It zooms in just the right time. It blurs out stuff right behind the actors just at the right time, so you can't tell what's that behind them. You
Yeah.
know, it it takes a lot of or it puts a lot of trust in the audience that you are familiar with so many different horror movie tropes, so that way when it does a zoom in or it does a blur out, it's like you're used to the typical, in like an Insidious movie, a Conjuring movie, like the camera's going to pan this way, when it pans back something's going to be there. This movie doesn't always do that, so I'd like to give its flowers for just thinking outside the box in that realm. There were certain times where she would put on her headphones because, if people don't know, the movie's premise is basically she is a podcaster, and she's podcasting like with her friend who's over the phone, and she'll put on her headphones and it like cuts the sound completely out of the movie. Just those little things like that I really enjoyed, and I thought they were very cool, unique touches. The constant tension and the creeping paranoia, it makes it very immersive. Like I felt like I was very immersed in everything and very, as I said, on the edge of my seat. Um, let's see. And then yeah, you also mentioned the acting. This movie is like, I think on screen they show it's just the main actress and then her mother who's ill upstairs. Everybody else is doing sound bites or being called over the phone. So
Mhm.
she does majority of the heavy lifting, and I think she does pretty well in that role. Um, I agree with you on the plot being a little bit thin. I'll get to that in the negatives. And I also have a big issue with the ending, which really drags me down sometimes in movies. So, but I will leave that for the negative portion. But I think, like, yeah, the film, as you said, has like a little bit more positives than negatives.
Yeah, I mean, kind of speculating, our negatives are probably going to overlap a good chunk.
Yeah, mine are, as I said, like it's not a bunch of bullet points. Mine is just like one big thing that I really just didn't like. So, if you're fine, like are you good to go into the negatives now?
Yeah, we can roll in.
Okay. So the only issue that I had with the film really as a whole that really brought it down for me, I felt like the ending kind of went off the rails a little bit. I think that the way that they were utilizing the sound and building up this tension, when you build up that much tension, you should have like a satisfying thing that's going to happen at the end, and I felt like they kind of dropped the ball with that. I felt like I didn't really understand what they were trying to set up, like what themes they were trying to convey between her and her mother. They also had this strange side plot of her with, being pregnant with this, her boyfriend's baby, and her and the boyfriend didn't get along or something. Like
Yeah.
they kind of like started setting up these little things that I felt like never really went anywhere. Um, and then for me, as I said, like, in a horror movie, I'm fine with you continuously, building up to that, building up to that. But then the reveal at the end to me was a little lackluster. And I don't really understand what they were trying to do with, they set up throughout the movie, the nursery rhymes, and they're kind of hinting at that, all this the paranormal stuff that they're listening to on the recordings maybe has something to do with the mom, with like the mom being sick upstairs or something. that never gets fleshed out. And I feel like that kind of detracts from it. I think that if they had just kind of polished that, made the plot a little bit more tidy and kind of stuck the landing slightly better, it would be much higher regarded by me. But that's really the only big negative I had with the film. Um, Other than that, like that, I mean, I thought it was pretty good. What about you? What were your negatives?
Yeah, I mean, I really only had 2 main ones, one of them matching yours. Um, I think for me, the larger issue of the 2 was the, like, thin plot or there not being enough story propulsion, because to me, I mean, the storyline feels light, kinda like the movie is built more around vibe than narrative. And if you're an audience or a film goer who wants a strong plot engine, this may feel underwritten. Um, but yeah, the ending just doesn't know what to do. And I mean, the back half, I would say as a whole, really just kind of struggles to resolve what the movie sets up. And it reaches the finish line without enough story groundwork to make the payoff feel satisfying, like as you put it. Like I mean, it's just kind of there and that's it. Um, what I would like to see in the future and main takeaway from this film is I don't think the writing matches the directing craft because the writer and director are one and the same. Um, the filmmaking is strong, but the script doesn't fully support it. What I would like to see in his next project would be to like it really feels like his talent is as a director is ahead of the writing. And I do think like his next project could really pop with a stronger screenplay or a co-writer. Um, and I mean, even the style of this film can be polarizing. Even if you respect the vision, you know, some of the creative choices may just not work for you. It's not for everybody. Um, it's the kind of movie where you either vibe with the aesthetic or you're allergic to it. Um, but yeah, I mean, overall, it's a very excuse me, uh, technically confident, dread forward like horror movie with really killer sound design and a strong lead. But yeah, the plot is thin and the ending can't cash the check that the atmosphere writes.
Oh yeah, 100%. Um, shall we go into our ratings for Undertone?
Yeah, fire away.
For me, I gave this a 6.5 out of 10. I think that I was teetering on giving it a 7, but just the sheer fact that for me personally in horror, I like the scares with also a good narrative throughout, and I feel like it didn't land that second half for me. So with that, I had to bring it down to 6.5. What did you give it?
I'm surprised I have more cons than you and I'm higher. Not by much. I gave it a 6.8 out of 10.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So yeah, like
basically the
right
same.
there. But yeah,
Right there, yeah. But yeah, that I think that what A24 is doing, as I said, I'm never going to take away from people that are trying to do something different, especially with how you could argue that movies are so oversaturated, I guess you could say these days with, it seems like Hollywood sometimes just says yes to any old script. So a movie like this, yeah, is definitely a step in the right direction. I think that, like you said, they had a good vision for it, but maybe the writing just was not there. And I mean, I'm very much looking forward to this week. I'm watching Obsession. Also, don't know anything about that, and I've been really enjoying movies a lot more this year without knowing anything
yeah,
about it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that and more A24 and Neon films and see what they got for the horror genre.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, now we will move on to our last review of this episode for Ready or Not 2. What did you think of this movie going in? Were you a fan of the first? Did you think it needed a sequel? What were your thoughts?
Um, I was a fan of the original. I didn't think it necessarily needed a sequel, but because the way the first one ended kind of left it a little open ended. Um, I would have appreciated if they left it open, but at the same time, like I'm not mad that they made a sequel, and I think the enhancements they made going from 1 to 2, kinda helped justify it, and, like, even from the trailer alone, like, seeing like, I'm a big Elijah Wood fan, shout out Frodo, Seeing him, I'm like, okay, like we're adding people now. Cool.
Yeah, I thought that the casting in this was pretty fun. Um, we'll get into the negatives and stuff like that that I had, but overall, it was an enjoyable time. I was more of a fan of the first one just because, again, I thought the first one was a bit goofy, but it had its comedic points, but it was also just different. You don't really see many movies like it out there, whereas I feel like this one kind of was very derivative. But do you want to do positives or negatives first?
Uh, I have four of each.
Okay, so kind of split. Um, let's do the negatives first then. Let's switch it up.
Okay.
You want to go?
Yeah, I can go. Starting with the negatives, what didn't work for me? Ultimately, I didn't think this one raised the bar. My biggest issue with it was it doesn't really improve on the original in any meaningful way. It felt more like another one than the next level. Um, and it kind of plays it too safe. Um, I do think what I would have liked to see going from 1, 2, 2, and even 2, 2, 3, if it happens. Uh, I think this series has a very wide canvas to get truly unhinged, and you would like to see in a sequel kind of develop that. This entry just didn't go for it enough, and it kind of holds back when it should be pushing the insanity just a little bit further. And with that, there's a very low escalation factor. You kind of just keep waiting for the sequel to hit a higher gear, and it mostly just stays in the same lane. Um, it really left me wanting more ambition. If you've seen the first one and you're a fan of it, like you're not likely to be mad, but if you're like me, like I walked out thinking, if they make a third, they need to up the ante like big time. Um, that's all I had. Nothing like outlandishly bad, but just things I would have liked to see more of.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I feel like this movie, and I don't want to make it sound too negative, but it's a little lazy. Kind of what you were saying. I feel as though with this movie, they kind of just rehashed the first plot, just added Catherine Newton in as the sister to just say, for the sake of saying, oh, but it is slightly different,
Yeah.
and then added, a few more people to the cast. But like you said, like if you've seen the first one, it's not like this one is too much different. I would have loved if even they just sprung to play a different game. I know that the film's called Ready or Not, but in this movie, they end up still just playing, Elijah Wood's character kind of is the guy who works for basically Satan and like his lawyer or something, I think it was. And he explains that, oh, you won that game, and so now like contractually now you have to play the same game. I would have, like you said, it kind of just stays within that same realm rather than up the ante.
Hmm.
They could have just, figured out another game at the very least. But I thought, like, as I said, it was like they just took the plot again, added a sister to it, and then it had the obligatory, sisters arguing, "Oh, you left me," and and then they make up in the end. So I thought that all of that was like kind of cheesy as well. But those are just my negatives. I wholeheartedly agree that I don't think this movie really went for any swings, and it shows in the movie. Um, for my positives, all the positives that I had for the first one, honestly, like I think the cast was really good. It's well acted. It's goofy, but not over the top, if that makes sense. Like it has like a whole demon like hell pit at the end, and yet it doesn't feel out of place. Um, I thought that, Samara Weaving, she's really good, and then she's in a movie that we'll be reviewing in a couple episodes over Your Dead Body. I'm really liking her acting. I'm pitching for her to be the new Harley Quinn in the DCU. Honestly, I think she'd be pretty good. Um,
She's a Margot Robbie clone. They look identical.
yeah, they look very similar, but I think that she's really good in, this role that she's playing. Yeah, as you said, if they decide to do three, and they have her and Catherine Newton again, I'd be fine with it. Just hopefully they add more to it. Um, as I said, I like the other surrounding cast. Like everybody, had their moment in the sun to have their comedic moments, and I thought that it was never a moment of holding on to that too soon. Like everybody, it went through with good pacing in that. Other than that, as I said, it's basically all the positives. If you like the first one, you'll get more of that in this one, but it just feels like you've seen it before. That's all. So those are my
Yeah.
positives.
I mean, it's still a fun time. I mean, as a sequel, it did a good job keeping the momentum steady, and it delivered really a solid watchable ride. I mean, there's no major collapse, no franchise killer swing that they take. And it does maintain the original's tone. It really holds onto that mix of dark comedy, chaos, genre savvy energy that really made the first one surprisingly good. And I do think this one serves as a reliable follow-up, and it it doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it doesn't derail it either. If you like the first movie, this one won't leave you feeling betrayed. Um, and the premise still has juice. I mean, the franchise concept, it as I kind of stated as a negative, like on the positive end too, like it still remains a great playground for ridiculous set pieces and escalation. There's still a lot of potential baked into the formula. But again, it's all kind of like future focusing. I'm hoping that they do more with that later down the line. But yeah, overall, I mean it's a steady, enjoyable sequel that kind of kept the ship afloat. But yeah, it just doesn't take the bigger, crazier swings that the franchise feels built for.
100%. I agree. What did you give Ready or Not to?
I gave it
Wow.
a 6.7 out of 10.
Slightly below your Undertone rating.
Slightly below, yeah.
I gave it also a 6.5 like I gave Undertone. As I mean, I can't really overstate the fact that yeah, this movie's completely fine, an enjoyable watch, but definitely could have, it had the opportunity to do more. And I agree with you that I'm a fan of the first one. Wouldn't necessarily call myself a fan of this one, but the franchise as a whole, just it has the potential to really go somewhere if they wanted to. So I'm excited to see if they decide to make it into a trilogy. We'll see if they up the ante then. But yeah, that will basically do it for this episode. We managed to review 3 movies within the one. I don't think we've ever done that before.
Nope.
Um, and we will have another 3 to review in the next episode. We still haven't decided what 3 there will be, but we're kind of playing catch up so that by the time it gets into later part of this month in June, we can start reviewing the going more in depth into the Supergirls and what else do they have coming out? Like Spider-Man and Dune.
Um,
No, Dune is in December.
Dunes in
What
December.
what else they got coming
Odyssey.
out? Odyssey.
Odyssey's
Yeah,
in July. Um,
I feel like
yeah,
they have more stuff
Spider
coming
Man's
out in
end of
June.
July. There probably is. I'm probably just blanking.
Yeah, I'm blanking as well. I have
And
so
then
many stuff on my watch list. So I'll just look through it.
hey, as do I. And then yeah, I mean, long range, we got Doomsday. Dune and Doomsday. That'll be fun.
Still waiting for the Doomsday trailer. But yeah, I'm excited. And I think now is when the year is going to start picking up because so far I feel like the movies that I've seen are, pretty good. I've like enjoyed them, but I think that now is when we're going to start picking up some speed here. So hopefully all of these movies for the remainder of the year are pretty good.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, thank you once again for listening. Sorry it was such a long wait. We just, both needed that little bit of a reset, but we are back now. We'll be, releasing weekly once again. So check us out next week and stay tuned for the post on what we'll be reviewing then. But yeah, we'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for listening.
Thanks everybody.